Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. How's everybody out there? For a lot of people, it's the first day of the week. I know that we've got kind of a number of people who are starting today, so today is acting like a Monday. And that's fine. Like Andrew, who's still tired. I know, me too. I actually didn't do so well this morning, getting up and getting moving, and it was brutal. Yep, this is your first day of the week too, my friend. I understand. So one of the things that happened yesterday, it was kind of cool, is I replaced all the lights in my office with smart lights, which is really nifty. Yeah, I don't know. Andrew, are you just and today? He might be just and because he's still groggy and tired. That might be what's going on. I felt that way, where I'm just a G. I'm not even really. Yeah, I'm not really all here. But this morning I'm here, and I'm ready to get started on work for the day. So, we were working on, and then yesterday we had Kat on, and that was really cool and very interesting. And then my computer completely borked out. Good morning, Brent. Well, that's actually really exciting, Brent. He says he has a job interview at 10:30. So we're wishing you all the luck in the world for that. That would be really cool. I mean, unless, of course, you have to work from 10 to noon, then I'm going to be all bummed. I'm kidding. But I really do hope that you nail this interview, my friend. So that'll work. Okay. I'm going to head out. We're still working on Fred's things off and on. I am right now in the process of writing script 1 of Bellatrix Rising. Writing is the hardest step for me. So it's, I can't sit here and talk to you guys while writing, which, I mean, obviously. B, it's like, I really like to craft the characters and things like that, and so I have to find the voice, and that's so hard. So I'm still working on script 1, but script 1 is actually being penned right now. So there's that. But the goal here is, this is going to take a very, very long time for us to finish this job. So, I'm going to open 307. For Fred, this is a very large project with a lot of pieces. So, it's going to take a long time. Okay, there we go. Move that over here. Yeah, it's probably better to be on my art page. I only put these things out on Facebook on my own personal page because I don't think anybody actually lives on my art page. So nobody actually knows when I go live on my art page. So there's that. My goal somewhere down the road is to change over from broadcasting on my personal page, because I feel like there are a whole bunch of people who really don't care about this, and that's fine, and that's okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I figure I've got to come up with a better way to advertise. That sounds horrible, but advertise on my personal page and then stop broadcasting to it. So, okay, I'm going to switch over to here. All right. So this is pretty straight up. Well, it's actually not a bad idea, Andrew, to do that. The reason why that doesn't happen is because the whole point behind this is if there is more than like 2 steps to my daily streaming process, I'm going to forget one of them. And because I did that for the longest time, I was streaming to, or was putting comics out on my GS Davis page, and then remembering to have to manually post it to my Facebook page, and then post it to DeviantArt, and then post it to Instagram. And, it's like what ended up happening was I ended up not doing that. I just simply stopped. And then I stopped posting all art altogether. And so I'm trying to prevent myself from getting into... I have you, you've never seen my desk. I had a procedure list at one point in time. Like a list of procedures. It's on one of these sticky notes somewhere. Yeah, that makes sense. So this piece here, he wants to be full-sized. But a lot of stuff needs to be fixed. Yeah, I've been trying to think about a way to do lists that works. So, I mean, like, my biggest problem with lists is, and by the way, that's the only way I operate is by lists and checking off things on lists. I can't operate otherwise, sadly. I don't think there's really anything on this side that's interesting. This is our interesting picture. And so there's nothing really that works for me except for making a bunch of lists like you're talking about. And it's a good idea. Biggest problem I'm having is not checking my lists or things like that. Now, that said, before we go too much further, I have just discovered that my Alexa can do all of the list checking and things like that. So there's certainly something to be said about list checking here with Alexa. Okay. So this guy did a great job of hitting a vanishing point right here. But like the shopping cart doesn't hit it. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but I think he got wigged out by a shopping cart. But part of the reason we're doing this again is because the shopping cart needs to be better designed. And this guy should be a little bit more dynamic. I mean, I know. How dynamic can you be in a shopping mall? Or in a store, I mean. right? I mean, if we were to just take and follow his lines, I mean, he did a perfect vanishing point. There is quite literally a vanishing point on this page. So when I look at this cart, I'm like, well, okay, but a cart doesn't follow it. Right? And the cart should be like this. I think what happens is, and this happens a lot with me as well, you start not believing your lines, right? And you start looking at the lines and saying, well, right, teenage girls in the mall. Yeah, well, I mean, it's true. Teenage girls in the mall are most definitely dynamic. And all I'm doing here is just giving myself an idea of what I want to do. Likely, the odds are extremely good that I'm just going to say, screw this, and redo it all in 3D anyway, right? Because there are two vanishing points in this picture, right? There's another one that's over here somewhere. And so this is declaring another vanishing point this way. And I can see it. It's way off over here somewhere. But that's where the cart has to go, is to that vanishing point. And what we're ending up with is kind of more of a mess kind of going on over here. Because with the dueling vanishing points, and a shopping cart, of course, is not exactly this way, right? It rises up and kind of hangs off like this and stuff like that. But at least now you can kind of see where that cart should have been. So what I will probably do is redraw this like this. You know, because there's a lot of things going on up here. There's a guy up here, right up here, with some kind of barrel. He's a cat guy, right? And there's a tree that's gone through the roof, which really should probably just have hanging tiles and stuff like that. Right. So what I'll do is I'll just rebuild this completely in 3D. And of course, all of these beams, which head down, right, toward the vanishing point. And, you know, it doesn't have anything like produce over here, which is what I would have. You know, I have some kid right here who I'll bet you is not a kid. That's the whole point. Anyway, so redo it and make it full size and give it some more dynamics. Push the picture a little bit. And that's what we're asking for over here. This one will take some time, but I want to go, with a cereal box with a two-headed mouse, no less. There's a two-headed mouse there. Anyway, I was saying at the beginning of the show, I got smart lights for my office. And now I can control them from my Alexa Dot, which cracks me up. And I've been having way too much fun declaring red alert and things like that in here, because now I can turn all my lights red. Yes, that may not be good. It may not be a good thing. Kids and their rats, and kids and their animals. Brent's saying that I shouldn't show his daughter because she's got a pet rat. So don't show the two-headed mouse down here. Now, the entire thing is post-apocalyptic, right? And so, what I'm going to do is I'll just build this entire scene in Dad's studio, and then that'll get me a long way into this particular piece without having to worry about it. Excuse me. Excuse me. Oh, man. Okay. We're just going to save this. We'll come back over here, and we've got only a handful of pages left. Right? So we only have like a few of these guys left. The book is only like 350 pages. So let's look at the next page on the list. These guys are all done. So it's 332 is the next one that needs to be done. Why, thank you. And this one's relatively easy. I'm going ahead and get the blackouts on it so that we don't have to broadcast the game rules. All right. Now I'll share that page. Here we are, sharing that page. All right. Now, this one's a relatively simple one. This is the actual production art that they had, and I figured that was way too little. This looks like a rough sketch. You know, that is exactly the way I feel, Andrew. That since nobody's out there running around sucking up all the pollen for me, it ended up coming over here and sitting in my patio. And I don't know what's going on. But yes, I have had an explosion of headaches. And I am very susceptible these days to sinus headaches, which is new to me. I am not a generally sickly sort of person. I mean, I'm not saying that there are people or whatever. I'm not casting disparaging comments on it, but I'm not. I'm just not. But I have, for the last 5 or 6 years, had kind of problems with my sinuses. So when the hay fever season starts, I get these pressure headaches in my sinuses. Well, I'm not a headache person. I've never had headaches. It's just a thing. So I am such a baby when it comes to headaches. I get a little teeny headache, and then I'm like, I'm going to go lay down forever. I hate life. People suck, and it's it's just like, I'm such a baby. I'm such a wimp. And it's like, I feel so bad because they're like people who have migraines, and the migraines are just horrible, and they still go to work and they still go and do their thing. And I'm like, I have a little wee headache. I'm going to go lie down and cry. And it's like, man, mustard on a pancake. Totally. Sinus headaches are mustard on a pancake. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This piece just really needs to just be re-inked. So I'm going to do just that. Okay, so this guy is just a scarecrow hanging out in the field, right? And if we do this way, because the piece isn't bad, this piece is fine, right? But whoever did this, totally left it at the point where that is totally a hammer is my penis thing. Have you guys ever seen Dr. Horrible's sing-along vlog? Because that's not going to make any sense if you haven't. All right. See you later, Brent. Good luck, my friend. I agree, David. Some of those books were terrifying. Andrew's like, what are you talking about? Hey, you've seen it. Of course I've seen it. Everybody's seen it. And I'm going to talk really loud. But yeah, the scary stories thing, I absolutely agree. That one's brutal, man. That's a brutal book. I don't know. And it was in every library, too. It was like, I don't know. It's like, did you people know you were terrifying children? Because, like, you were terrifying children. I'm just saying. So, I know this is kind of risky to go straight to ink, but like I said, I feel kind of like the original artist here almost had a perfectly done picture. Except for that tree is like a savanna tree. I don't know where that tree came from, but right, so I'm just going to go on ahead and ink in on this. We've got some kind of rock formation here. Which will go down like that, and then we'll go like this, and then I'll go like this, and then up, and then down, and then we'll go out like this. Got like a pass through here. Right. Put some little rocks and detail on here like this. And all we're doing is just putting in a certain amount of rough terrain back here, that's all. Right. And just making it not static. This is a mountain scene in the background back there. So we kind of want that to go like that. I feel like he was headed for more mountains over here. It's hard to tell. There we go. This is where I'll really use the brush's effect and let the brush kind of do its thing. Right? And going through here. Every aspect of comic art has a unique set of skills. Inking, as much as people love to make inking out to be sort of a Andrew. As much as people like to make inking into just tracing, it actually isn't. There's a lot more to it. So this tree, to me, doesn't look like it's alive much anymore. I know that he put grand foliage on it, but to me, I feel like it's dead. And it's been dead for a while. Mostly because this wide brushed tree, with the plateau of branches, is not something we find traditionally here in America. And I feel like this entire piece, the tree is dead as hell. I feel like this entire set of books is set in America. And so the plateaued out tree, though, is more of an African Sahara or savanna thing, and not really as much of an American. Did it really? Your sound is back as hell. Okay. I'll turn on my... I don't even think it's on the snowball. There we go. Now it's probably on the snowball. My sound is probably much better now. Okay, back to work. So, coming through here. So last night I looked into the idea of a headset. But man, I was just... it was the middle of the night, so I couldn't actually listen to it. I could just see what it looked like on Audacity, or Audition, And I looked at the waveform was just so nasty. So just so you know, I thought about the idea of changing to a headset, but the sound quality was just horrid. It was a terrible thing. It was dirty and... Man, we'll put in... might be this is corn. Let me try it again. Some of us suck at corn suddenly. Who knew? Who knew corn would be so hard? Aw, shucks. I think I'm funny. This may not be a cornfield, though. But this entire chapter is about growing. Right? And it's about things that you can grow in this game. So I'm going to operate on the pretense that this is some kind of farm thing out here. There we go. There we go. It was a corny joke, wasn't it? I admit openly it was a corny joke. There we go. I'm just giving some feel to the plane out here. All right. And we're going to... I'm not sure what they're growing out here. And you know what? I could use a hairbrush for this. That was funny. Okay. Let's talk about the clouds, though, up here. All right. So on the plains, we had a lot of stratocumulus clouds, which fold over like this, but have a very... Good morning, Paul. How are you this morning? Andrew is having a wild morning this morning. I think his computer is stuck on caps lock, so there is that. Okay, so some really tall, like, those are some stratocumulus out here. Really, really, but like thunderstorm brewing sort of stuff. You know, stuff going on out there, stuff going on. Ooh, that's so exciting. Love that. Paul is saying his lightsaber is coming in today. That'll be really cool to see. I'm just saying. I'm saying. Okay. Now I'm gonna real quickly draw in a white square, right? So that we can take a look at this without the background. Right, this allows me to see what this piece looks like without the interference of this, but I've still got the original piece underneath it in case I need it, right? Which is important because I'm actually now looking at the scarecrow. I'm not as happy with that scarecrow, but we'll worry about that in a minute. I'm going to make a new layer up here. One that's not the art. And we're going to try a couple of things. I have a number of wild brushes, right? So let's take a look at my brush palette and see what we've got. And anyway, I'm having a bad brush day. Okay. Because I have a bunch of brushes that do hair. We've done watercolor splashes before. And ink splatters. I've got a bunch of brushes that do hair. So my thought is, we've got some cloud brushes. I wonder if this will work better for these. Really? Let's not do that. Yeah, see, that's not going to help us like I wanted to. Sweet. Well, Paul, I'm looking forward to seeing the aforementioned awesome lightsaber. I feel like these clouds are not going to help me like I want them to. Kind of wish that there was a way to... Okay. We got hair. Some hair will work really great as things in a field. Like this guy here. Right? Looks great. Like grass in a field. Right? So we'll take this brush. We'll increase its spacing. Right? And then I can go along here like this. It just looks like grass, right? I mean, that's the way to do this. I'm going to make the brush taller and bigger. There. Right. And if I fade it off a little in the background like this, it'll give waves and depth. Right? Now we have a little field in here. Make sure it doesn't go below the safe for that. Then we come back in with a normal brush. What do I want for this? Come in with a normal brush, and we just put things in here. Right? That's not what we want, though. We want a smaller brush, because that is a little too dramatic. We have these little inconsistencies make it look less like hair and more like some kind of flower or plant. You know, tell me how the mirrorless go, because I really want to get into mirrorless, I think. I'm really thinking that might be where I'm headed on mirrorless as well. Ooh. You guys. That's what we're looking for right here. The idea here, of course, is to work smarter, not harder. Or I can just add dots and things like that to make this work. The better it looks. There we go. Yeah, well, Paul, you and I are going to have to, have a discussion. Because I'm, of course, a Canon guy, naturally. So we're going to have ourselves a little talk. No, actually, I I think that's one of those, it all depends totally on what you got into and when you got into it, right? For me, I got into Canon in the 90s in film versions. So, not much I can do about the fact that I still am using a couple of my Canon lenses. But one of the things that does bother me about cameras, this really bothers me a lot about cameras, is the fact that the cameras are completely different. Like the controls between Canon and Nikon are completely different. So if you decide to change, it's like they've got it set up so that there's just no way. You can't change. And I'm just introducing some disruption here, that's all. And I may or may not like this. I don't think I like it. It seemed like a good idea. See you later, Andrew. Okay. So, this piece here is coming along rather nicely. The only problem I've got is this much chatter and detail in here. This much chatter and detail really does make it look like shading. So I kind of want to do something out here on the mountains to match in on that. I may actually decide to do something else with this. So let's take a look. Let's see if I can't do better. Right? I might be able to do this better. So we'll go out here, find my brush that was hair that I liked so much. And take this guy. And let's look at the brush effects and space it out a lot this time. Right? Let's bring up the size. So we're dealing with more like something larger, a lot larger. Right? And can we do anything thicker? Because this is part of my problem, is feeling like I want a thicker brush for this. I like these Nagel series hair brushes because they can do, here we go, right? A much thicker fur, right? More like an animal fur. Question is, how thick will it make it? Oh, you know what also would help is if you weren't actually on, say, that. Now we're talking, right? So, okay, that might be a little too thick. Let's see what this guy looks like. That guy looks better. All right. So what we'll do is raise the size of this guy. All right. That looks a lot better. So now I'll increase its spacing. And then we're going into the tip here. I don't want a lot of jitter, but I do want some jitter. And I want randomness, right? Do you know, I don't remember. I literally have had these Nagel brushes. I probably did. I mean, odds are really, really good I did. because one of the things that I consider to be a business expense is purchasing brushes. So I don't know whether these were free brushes or whether I paid for this set. I think this is one of the ones that I paid for. And it's hair and fur. And it's so useful for exactly this. You never think about what you might want to use these for. But this gives me the ability to do stuff like this, right? Yeah, because I like this a whole lot better. It looks more like a field of like poppies or whatever. I'm going to go back and forth through here with a smaller brush. Right? I like kind of randomizing here and every so often because it's like that's what fields do, right? They randomize. There we go. But for the most part, fields kind of look like this. Oh, little guys inside, right? And this will give me much more of the fields of wheat or whatever this is that's in this little farm field here. I'll let that field go back in the back there. And I'll make it go smaller as we go further back so that it doesn't have to be. But I like the idea of just some chaos every so often, right? I don't know what that is, but that's obviously some kind of chaos back there. There. I mean, random hair? I'm trying to figure out whether that's what you're talking about. You're probably talking about random hair. There we go. This is a much better field. It feels more like a field, right? I feel like I've got more. There we go. Yep. There we go. Now let's find that other one that I liked so much. It looked kind of like the top of the wheat stacks. Like this guy here. Right? That's what we want. Right? And those look like the top of wheat stacks there, which is fine. All right. And we can give a couple of little chaotic bits in here too. Little dots just to kind of make this work. Right. There we go. Now that feels more like something we want to deal with. Right. All I'm doing here is just going in through here and just connecting pieces, right? Whatever's in this farmland here, just connecting the pieces so that they all fit together and make sort of a dark zone in the center. You give a real feel that this is, first of all, I want to give it the feel that this was hand drawn, obviously. So, but the second of all is I want to give it a less consistency. It's got kind of a consistency going for it that I don't like. Right? And this is supposed to be a chaotic farm thing. And this guy will like that. You get like this guy there, and this is post-apocalyptic America. You're not going to ever have anything that is consistent in here. Nobody's mowing this thing. Right? Now we look less like we have hair growing here and more like this is some kind of farm. Right? There we go. Okay. Now, the other thing, of course, is that it has gone way into the gutter. Kind of like our discussions sometimes on this channel, huh? Okay, let's clear the gutters. Clear the gutters! I'm going to call this one relatively good. I want to do a little bit of work over here where I've got kind of this going on. That's just making him look like he's maybe got some plaid going for him, as they always do. Right? There we go. Perfect. Like that. And the best part about this is that because I just went ahead and just inked this one in, this one's going to be done. When we're done here, we'll be just done. And what I'm doing here is just adding some structure to our mountains. So you feel that these things have weight. And they should be weighty. I mean, they're mountains after all. It's just giving them some structure and some weight. There we go. Maybe. You may be right, but I'm not worried about it. All right. I'm just following the instructions that were originally here. All righty. Let's bring our camera back online. So this piece didn't take that long to work on. I mean, really, technically, it took about an hour, give or take. So I'm going to go ahead and call this one a done piece. I'm noticing some problems with it, though. Let's go ahead and merge this all together. There we go. because actually putting in on the text, I am noticing that it has some problems with that. So let's give it a little bit of size adjustment there. Right. Looking at the artwork underneath it. I'm just going to go on ahead and not do that. So real quickly here, I'm just going through and cleaning up the piece underneath it. There's looking at the piece around it, and once I put in once I put in the text, or returned the text to the spot, we had I noticed a couple of errors. So we're just going to real quickly clean this up. Make sure it's nice and clean. Make sure there's nothing left of the original piece. There we go. And then I can merge this down. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. Okay, we'll save this page. And going ahead to the next one. Let's look at the next piece. What do we have on the next piece on our docket? Actually, I should call that one done, but that's all right. We won't. When it's done, I trim off the instruction piece. Yeah, let's do that. So that I can identify to myself that this piece is done. Here we go. Now we'll save it. So all I'm doing here is, the way I can tell whether pieces are done or not on this is when I went over to Fred's house, he had the book and we went through page by page, and he said, I need this done here. I need this done there. And so I took my camera and I just took a picture of what was going on. My camera has the ability to write on it, or my phone. My phone has a stylus, so I was able to just then write the instructions literally on the photograph that I took. I've loaded those instructions in here with a copy of the page at full size, 300 dpi, and so I can just directly work on the page itself with the original instructions. I just glued them just stuck them to the side of the page. So the way I can tell whether a page is done or not is I pull the instructions out, because I still have the original pictures in another folder. So if I really need to go back, if he doesn't like the piece or doesn't want the piece or something like that, I can always go back and look at the piece again. So I pulled the instructions off of a number of these pages, which tells me we are done. Done, done, done. Okay. So this is an open air market, huh? Ugh, this is going to be a brutal piece. Tons of people mulling about. All kinds of stuff. So, let's switch back. Switching back. There we go. Okay. The instructions here are an open air trade market. So let's lay this one out. Let's see what funny brush we're on. We're not on any funny brush. That's weird. Okay. So my thought is, you got people, and they're all just kind of going back into the distance out here. Right, and then you got kind of those open air market sort of things like this. give you the impression that this is indeed some kind of open market with a flag flying there. You have the person here who's looking at something on here, and probably has cat ears, and this person is over here. The whole idea of this is to give sort of a world feel. So this person's probably also a cat ears person. Phone? That is my phone. The weirdest sound. See that somebody is calling me at this point in time. That's okay. This person's looking at stuff right here in the open market. So there's that. There we go. And all I'm doing here is just getting an idea of what I'm looking for in this. Markets are huge, so there's lots of people wandering around. This is weirdly a strange little fantasy at this point in time in our coronavirus world. There we go. There's lots of people in this picture. There we go. Like maybe an animal or a dog right here. Another person right here. Really putting in sort of things like this and stuff going on. And the markets are this like kind of structure. Like this. Maybe it is tense going both. This is intense. Markets are intense. I think I'm funny. Okay. This is right after Andrew said I sounded smart. Then I started saying intense. Right? And now Andrew regrets saying that I was smart. Okay. So we'll do this. There we go. And this just tells me what's going on. This is just an indicator of where I'm headed on this one. That sounds really not smart. Okay. So you got like this going on. Maybe he's like, hey, are you sure you want to buy that widget? Right here? Because there's this total widget going on here. Are you sure you want to buy a widget? And she's like, yes, I really want to buy this widget. This widget looks really cool to me. And I like widgets. And I have a collection of widgets at home. And I keep the widgets on the shelf. And I have always had this love for widgets. Okay. There we go. And there's the bin of widgets. Widget bin. There. Okay. So this is an open air market. Now, although apparently viruses do run rampant in this world as well, it's an entire chapter, so there's that. Okay, so I'm going to say that this is a pretty decent thing here. Just making sure it's not on top of any other artwork before I fold this down. All right. There we go. All right. I'll switch back to my picture real quick, and then I can remove the black bar. So I put these black bars in. You know, it's actually kind of funny. I was just talking to the guys at Earth Towel, and they're like, no, don't put the black bars in. It's fine. Okay. I won't put the black bars in. They're like, you don't have to put the black bars in, but I haven't talked to Fred about whether he wants black bars or not, so. All right. Okay, now I have finished doing all of these guys here. We've finished getting to the end of the book with just sketches. So now the question is, which one's easy enough to do in 1 hour? Or 45 minutes, because we only have about 45 minutes left in our show. And so I'm going to take a look through here and just look at all of these pieces. Right? That one's going to be difficult. That one's not going to be easy at all. Some of these are just going to be difficult. So that's going to be fun. So some of these are going to be a lot of fun, but I'm trying to find ones that are easy to do. And hopefully we can just do it. We need to move. We need to move one too. There's another one. It's like that needs to be moved. Yeah, I don't think any of these guys are going to be easy. Yeah, okay. Well, looking through the ones that need to be done, I don't think any of them can be done in 45 minutes at this point in time. So we're going to start starting tomorrow-ish or something like that. We'll start with doing these pieces and full up doing these pieces and setting the rigs and stuff like that. So it'll be fun. So we'll do that and we'll see what happens. So, but I think we're done with Fred for the day. It's all right. Let's see what other trouble we can get into doing this. We've had a couple of, there's got to be a quick fix on rock salt by instruction from Earth Towel, but that doesn't seem like that's going to be a major fix, so I don't want to necessarily waste time on that at this point. Let's see who else we've got on here. We've got all of those. Those are done. That's up, and those guys are up. So in Earth Towel, I'm noticing something very interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I have 20 pieces that I've done for Earth Towel. That's a lot of pieces. I feel like my artwork should be evolving. Just saying. Okay. I think we are. Oh, I should retire this folder. Boy, I'm going through and noticing all kinds of stuff that just, like I have a couple of folders in here of projects that have folded. They are done. So, okay. Well, I'm not finding anything that needs to be done. So, or that can be done at this moment. So we're going to go back to Bellatrix and work on Bellatrix a little. That sounds like a thing. All right, bringing up Bellatrix Rising. Here's what we're going to do. We're working on Polaris. There we go. Now we can get back to work here. This works for me. Share the screen. Heading over to Polaris. Okay. We're going to take this piece here. And really close up here, we're going to talk about what's really going on the ship, right? What we can do is this. There we go. So, I'm really working here on how the structure works. I want to look at some of the city structure. Right? I really like the concept and idea of these flower petals closing in on Polaris. And so we'll do this here. And go up like that. And we're just gonna, whoa, that's too big. Oh, let's say 3. I don't think that's any more than 3 point. Yeah, there we go. So we want it to be straight. I don't know if that was straight. All right. There we go. Now what we've got here is a number of operable decks in the middle. And this will fold inward like this. And the reason I'm doing this is because it'll give shape to the bottom that looks interesting. When I build this in Blender, it's going to have kind of a curve on the inside where the city structure all goes. So I'm just defining this curve, right? Now, I'm sure there's some, we could say, in-story logical reason for why this curve exists, but the reality is it looks cool. And so many things are, it looks cool. Why'd you do that? It looks cool. Well, let's go ahead and find the center line of Polaris and define it here. Right about there. Everything that comes off of here is all going to be coming off that side of the dome and everything like that. So we want to make sure that the dome is defined. There we go. And up and over like this. There we go. There we go. Now we've defined the dome up onto that part there. And we don't really need to go past this midline for this guy down here. But I do want to define the under curve here to this. There we go. And what we're doing here is we're looking at now, what does the underside of the Polaris look like in here? And the truth is, it's got this huge docking station where all of these, where we have this internal structure right here, which I'm going to go ahead and say is like that. And what will happen is this will look completely, it'll stand out as a separate environment underneath the Polaris, which makes some sense because these are the launch hangers, right? So we're going to actually kind of arch this out like this and connect it in. There we go. The reason I say that is because, I mean, you could see in theory somebody flying around in this little gap up here and being bizarre. That's somebody probably being our heroine. She's probably notorious for things like that, so there are things. And then I'm going to go on ahead and head down and let's talk a little bit about the control structure for the folded drive. It's all the way down here. Now, the fold drive is a massive machine in this story, and that's the reason why I don't have fold drives on small starships. They are huge, and they take up a ton of space. And so it's easier to just take the fold drive and put it on a large ship and then have the fold drive itself have a city where they transport to zones. There's also an in-story reason why fold drives do this, and we can get there at some point. But there's an in-story reason why you don't want to fold too much. And so I'm going to go ahead and just give some greebles to our fold drive so that it feels greebly. It makes it look more like it's got some kind of structure going for it there, as opposed to just being a big block there. Hello, Brent. Welcome back. Did you do well? Do you feel like you did a good thing? Feel like that went well? Hope it did. All right. So I'm going ahead and cleaning up the Polaris's profile so that I can make a 3D model out of it at some point. That's what we're after here. All right. There we go. No more than a week is good. If they told you a time, that generally that's a very good thing. If they don't tell you a time, well, don't call us, we'll call you. Things don't ever go well there. So, we're just cleaning up this. And all we're doing here is just adding structure to the bottom of this. And I'll show you why we're only doing one side here in a minute. But that's the fold generator and the fold engine section. And then we'll go down the communications train, which is really nothing more than a bunch of very large radio antennas that hang off of the bottom and allow our ships to communicate with one another via these large towers. And they become somewhat of a target for the enemy, because if you take out the communications train, there's nobody in it, really. I mean, you might have one or two guys who are working on things. So it's a nice, Geneva Convention friendly target. And 2, you drop communications for the sector. So this becomes a heavily fortified and protected zone for the people on the Polaris. They've got to guard this and protect it, but it needs to be open and free in order to be able to make its communication. So there's that. It's sort of a constant argument, fight, whatever, between the military, which has to deal with it, and the civilians, or not civilians. I guess it's not really the civilian population has to worry about this at all. But I'm sure that this is a problem between the brass and our beloved military. There we go. There we go. So, the communications train. Most communications is handled in this universe by quantum entangled pair communications. And that is using an entangled pair of atoms who talk to each other because they're entangled. And so you use quantum entanglement to make your communications happen. All right. Let's talk about the pedals. Quantum entanglement is a theory that I'm going to do this right here. Indicates the top of the dome. We're actually going to put structure on top here. And this is probably actually not actually saying much at all, but I would say that could plausibly be the bridge area up here, which might There we go. That way the bridge can be up there. But what we're going to do now is we're going to make the petals of this critter. And easiest way to do this is to just define this, right? We already know what this needs to bolt in on. Right there. There's your petal. Hey, look how almost accurate I was in my original drawing. That's actually somewhat terrifying. Okay. So the petals are armored plates that fold in. And actually, I'm going to move this up because the armored plate here needs to be aligned outside of here, like that. All right. There we go. And then this guy can just be all the way over like that. There we go. Look at that. And this armored plate, or the petal, can fold down onto the structure of the station. What I think really probably ought to also happen to prevent the problem that Brent was talking about is, I think I would plate armor around the hinge, because that's not a good place to strike. You don't want to strike here. Should be weaker, even further away. And there might even be large, thin structures to just back support those petals, right? Attacking the petals is just not really a wise move, no matter which way you do it. It's just not going to help you. It's not going to end well. But all right, so moving in here. So now we've got at least some of what the petals look like from the side. And taking that out, the Polaris is a much cleaner looking vessel now. Yep, I see you broadcasting out on Twitch, Brent. See you out there, man. You're good. Alrighty. Next thing's next. Okay, I'm feeling like that's probably right. So, we're going to duplicate it and then flip that. And this now is going to be the other half. Right? There we go. The question I now have is, should I have put in the other two petals? Or the other 1.5 petals? I probably should have. They aren't going to be as high up as they were on the sketch. And so, but let's go ahead and do that. Let's hit that. There we go. Put this in so that we've got the petals I mean, even if it's like this. Right? There we go. That's probably more accurate. There we go. Excellent. That's that petal right there. I feel like we'd have two in between, which would make some sense. Right? So there's this guy, which would open up like that. Even that, I feel like, is not quite right. It's going to be here. There we go. Much better. Much better. Okay, so this petal there we go. There we go. That petal out there. And then there's one more, which is right directly behind this bridge structure. There we go. And you can kind of see the petals through like this. And through the glass. That makes this feel like that's too high. Because now I'm like looking at where it comes in on the actual structure. There we go. Much better. Okay, so that's all the petals. All right. Excellent. So now what we'll do is duplicate this and then flip it. Right? And now we've got a full, complete ship. And it will look fine if we take that away. There we go. Now let's double check because I think we're off by a pixel. And we are. So we will move. There we go. And everything is together. Except right here where everything is not together on the deck. That's all right. We'll get there. But I think I can now merge those two together. And now we have a viable image of what this ship looks like, with the exception of its fold fin. But the fold fin needs to be asymmetrical. That's why I didn't put it in. This is a navigation fin. And all navigation fins in my design are asymmetrical in this world, for no reason other than I just absolutely adore the idea of things being asymmetrical sometimes, because they just aren't. Not everything is going to be symmetrical in the world, and so I like making the fold fin completely asymmetrical. So that's a design choice. I'll round off all the corners of the fold fin. Except for that one. I like that one that way. Okay. There we go. Now when you look at this, that's what the Polaris looks like. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. So, the Polaris, as a ship goes, has, now we get to add all of the things in that are completely asymmetrical off the ship. And that would be buildings. Humans and any creatures in this, people, because actually I was thinking that earlier today, people are ridiculous about lining things up symmetrically. They just won't do it. So, especially when you start introducing things that are chaotic, like cities and cityscapes, right? So, I feel like there would be these small buildings underneath here, which may or may not be somewhat symmetrical. And these buildings then are likely you were pocket typing, butt dialing. You were butt dialing. But, walking the dogs is good. So, what I'm doing here is just adding some interesting little constructions that hang down from the bottom of the dome. And I feel like, yeah, they were just going to go all the way around. That's exactly right. They're just going to, you've got a few of them that, kind of do this and stuff like that. And these buildings are likely to be very military buildings. I mean, I don't think that these buildings might even be military administration. All the way around the bottom there. And the reason is because this large structure right here is the docking structure. And so inside here is where we keep the battleships and, things like that to be deployed. So I'm not expecting that these are civilian per se. I would guess that they are probably not civilian. Because if nothing else, this is a primary target right under here for anybody to strike. So if when you're in a combat zone, this area under this shell is going to be hit a lot. People are going to keep trying to take that out. Right? Which is why I think these guys would have cannon turrets of some sort right there. All the way around the bottom on that lip piece there would be these turret mounts, which would be ready to defend the underside of the shell. I also feel like, in general, the most armored place, ironically, is going to be the shell pods, right? I mean, the shell pieces are heavily thick armored, very, very secure, that kind of thing. So my thought is really that in general, the Polaris is not going to leave itself this section of her open to the battlefield. And to think that I don't know whether it's ablative. I think it's probably not only going to have, armor, like plate armor, but I think it's also going to have like some kind of electro shield or electro transmission shield of some sort. But it's not ablative. I don't want anything to go away. So it's just going to take a pounding. But I feel like closing the shell and then aiming that part towards the battle is probably what's going to happen when you're here on this. And yeah, Brent, I do agree. I will show the pedals closed. Mostly the reason I did this was so that I can start building a 3D model. Once I built a 3D model, I can do all kinds of side or 3/4 views and stuff like that. So, but I need the initial design. I need this sort of structure here to tell me what I'm building. But yeah, ablative armor. I don't want to lose any of this, so this is an asset that can't actually easily be replaced. So you don't want anything to ablate off of it. I like how the Defiant had ablative armor, and I was like, well, I guess that makes sense. I mean, you've got replicators, so. You don't really need to worry. The other thing is, looking at the top view of this city, when I look at the top view, where's the top view? There it is. I have oceans on either side. So this little dip on either side is great in that it's going to be where these water tanks are. Roger. So I actually kind of put weirdness over here where I shouldn't have. Because my thought is under this deck here, especially out here, we're going to start having the ability to put in an ocean pod, right? I mean, some of this is going to be able to... Yes, I feel like it would be a hex grid of glass pieces too. Hexes are great. They take a lot of stress in multiple locations and stuff like that. So you get like kind of a little ocean out here, right? A little ocean tanks. They're not all the way around, but they're pretty close to all the way around, right? So through here. Oops. Wow. Having a lot of problems with this one all of a sudden. Let us have some water tanks in here. On this side, we've got things. The trees. Trees are getting to me again. Okay. Right. So we got water on both sides here. I mean, I like the idea that entertainingly you're in this building and directly underneath you is an ocean going the other direction. There's something funny about that concept. I don't know why I like that so much, but I do. All right. I feel like this is probably wider than it needs to be. Let's take a look at the actual city itself. And actually what I'm going to do with this now is I'm going to take this layer and remove this original drawing. We know what all of these pieces are. I remember how that works. The gear thing works. So we don't need that. And the reason I'm going to do this is I'm going to take this guy and move him here. I'm going to merge these two layers. Yes, this is my comic that I am building, which we will start seeing pages of relatively soon. Paul, you haven't been here for a lot of the early stuff that we talked about on this. But this is a story called Bellatrix Rising. And I used to, 100 zillion years ago, back in the days of the dinosaurs, I was making a Star Trek fan comic called Tamerlane. And here, I'll pull up a Tamerlane piece. And we'll see if I can't show you a little bit what's going on here. Maybe I can't. Maybe that's not capable. Maybe it's going to take 3 hours for me to right mouse click again. But I wrote a series called Tamerlane. And it was about... Here, I think we're done there for a little while there. Whoa, there we go. Oh, yeah, I'm going to bring it up. I wrote a series called Tamerlane, which took place in the Star Trek universe, in the original series universe. And it was based off of a concept a buddy of mine had come up with long before Deep Space Nine or Voyager, where he had said, why is it always the Enterprise? What about Star Trek, the rest of the Federation? And so I built the story a long time ago called, Star Trek, the rest of the Federation. And so the story takes place on a destroyer, which is the Franz Josef Technical Manual. If you look at the Franz Josef Technical Manual, they have these little destroyers, which is just a saucer with a single warp nacelle. And I thought, that's an interesting story. It's something you never really hear about, which is the little ships, the little guys out there. There's got to be other ships besides these huge heavy cruisers that just wander around space. So, of course, after that, Deep Space Nine came out, and then Voyager came out. So they were obviously doing Star Trek, the rest of the Federation. But in 2005, we were talking about it again, and I came up with some concepts for characters that I really liked. And I've been drawing on Tamerlane now for, that's 15 years. And, I like the Lower Decks episode too. But I've been drawing for about 15 years, and a couple of the people you'll see from time to time that are on my Facebook page are fans of that comic. The problem is you can't sell that comic. I mean, obviously, I can't sell any of these. So I have put in hundreds of hours of work, probably thousands of hours of work, on a comic that I can never sell. So what I did was I moved everything over into my own universe. I did the Renegades thing, where I moved all the characters over, I moved the concept over, I moved all the stories. I mean, I'm literally just repurposing Tamerlane stories in a universe that's my own. And the best part about this is this allowed me some freedom. Now I don't have to worry about warp drive and did I get my uniforms correct? And I'm such a stickler for details as an artist that it was limiting to some degree. I liked it, but it was limiting to some degree. So I spent the last probably 6 months world building on this story, so that I can get a universe ready to go. And that's where we are with this. Is now we're building all the pieces. And originally, the story of Tamerlane took place on a destroyer. I've moved it over to the Kittiwake, which is a Corvette, which makes it even smaller. And then realized that part of this is that the universe in real life, the galaxy, is massive. Super, super huge. So the thought was you would have mobile bases that moved from section of the galaxy to the section of the galaxy and then deployed all the ships out to do their little meet with aliens and, help this farming community and all the things you saw with Star Trek. It's so huge that you'd have these mobile bases. And that's what this is. The Polaris is a huge mobile base. adding the universe together like it is, what I've ended up with is, I like this a lot better. It changes none of the Tamerlane stories at all. And it changes none of the characters, really. In the original story, I had a triumvirate of characters that were my Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. And it was my captain, Julie Cochran, and the first officer, who was Angeline Bennett. They just called her Angie or Angel sometimes. And then the perspective character was the engineer, the chief engineer, and she was just transferred aboard. And her name was Brandy Ward. And I've moved those 3 characters over. They still exist over here. All the side characters exist, although I've changed races for a couple of them because that's kind of fun. Yeah, right. I mean, it's 15 billion light years to the edge that we know of, and that's just because that's the end of where time is. I mean, the universe is only 15 billion years old, or so it's kind of a thing. So you can only see 15 billion light years, which makes me think that there would be observatories at the edge of our galaxy that are looking 15 billion years out to see what they can see, and that would extend. I mean, I think you get this like lumpy image of how the universe looks as time goes out. But yeah, Paul, the story that I have written, I've moved the characters over and redrawn them. And we've got, like, here, I'll move back to the Bellatrix side. For example, I was challenged to draw this piece. There we go. We'll move the screen over for this. And this is where Captain Chang is coming from. This is Captain Chang, and she's the captain of the Kittiwake, right? And in her hands there, or in her hand, she's holding a hologram of Renum. Renum is the home world that we've all moved to since Earth was involved in a war. And so we've moved off of Earth. You can see a few things here. I mean, obviously you can see in the background I've added the Kittiwake right here. And this is the uniform, and these red dots here are where it seals. Oh, you just lost me? Did you lose me? Wait, am I dead? I'm still broadcasting. I'm still broadcasting. Okay. I'll keep talking, even though I see that Paul has lost me. We are only about 4 minutes to the end of the show anyway. But anyway, so I've managed to do all the things that I've wanted to. Oh, okay, good. I've wanted to do with my Star Trek story, and I never really got the ability to do it. So, so here is the funny part is, like, this was the service patch on Tamerlane, so I just moved it over too. So instead of having the traditional command or sciences or engineering in the center here, I just put a Renum, which is this world, with an arrow saying this is us leaving Renum, Space Force, so to speak. But this is my main character. We'll be doing the other 2 characters this week, because actually I have finished their workups. So that'll be this week's job as well. Probably even tomorrow. And we'll talk a little bit about Mayrel, who is the character that Ward was and has moved over. And she's the point of view character, and that was true in Tamerlane, and now it is true in Bellatrix Rising. So that's where we're going. So there you go, Paul. That's the whole thing. This is a massive story, and I'll be working on this for the next, probably for the next couple of years. It's huge. So I've got up through book 6 plotted out, and from book 6 to book 9, things get a little weird on the story, so I need to settle that down a little before I can finish that off. But for right now, I'm looking forward to drawing it. So I'm hoping you will enjoy it as well. So there you go, guys. Today we've been working a little bit on all kinds of stuff. I'm going to come up with more plans for the shows, like what pieces are we working on for the day. I'm also going to figure out how to incorporate music. I have a plan to incorporate music because I'm an evil person. Now, I know that many of these platforms will banish you if you do music, so I'm going to be very, very careful how I do this. But I've got an old mixer that used to be for Geek Tank, and we don't use it anymore. So I've been thinking about hooking that mixer permanently up here and making a little zone where I can mix in music from, say, an iPod or something like that. And I've got an iPhone, which I don't use for anything other than random work, like photography and stuff. So I was thinking of hooking that up and then making it so that the iPhone's job is to store a whole bunch of royalty-free music so that nobody will nail me for copyright infringement. But these are things I'm kind of thinking of to kind of add a little bit of ambiance to this. I'm also building shelves over here that should be up in the next few days, which will put all my books, and then I can put my camera back here looking over this way, so that I'm not quite as shadowy as I am right now. But the only reason it's not aimed that way was because that way was a mess and a disaster, and it didn't look very attractive. And so I wanted to kind of fix that. But I've got opening and closing panels, pieces, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I now have pictures for openings and closings, so that's kind of cool. So I appreciate all of you people joining me for my show today. And I will see some of you guys tomorrow. And if not, have a great week. If you do stick with me, have a great day. And I will. So Paul's asking, what other cons am I going to besides NDK? Sadly, my computer was just telling me that Wicked West Con.
Sorry, I'm not sure.
Not you. You just be quiet. Was telling me that Wicked West Con was this last weekend, and I was supposed to table at it. Other than NDK right now, Paul, I'm just holding off. Almost every convention I was supposed to go to has postponed to next year. So I've got tables at a few cons next year. I'll table at a few other cons next year. We'll see what happens. But for right now, I'm calling 2020 a loss, which is great because that'll allow me to finish a comic or two and have a few of them on the table. And with you guys hanging with me, I'm hoping we can do this all together. So that'll be great. I hope to see you tomorrow. And if not, have a great week, and I will see you all later. Bye-bye.